Rain pelted the windows like 1,000 whispers, each drop tapping out its own story. I sat in the dim glow of my living room lamp, a cup of cold tea by my side. The room felt smaller tonight, the shadows stretching in unsettling ways. It was the anniversary of Lily's death, and I found myself drawn to the memories that I'd kept carefully locked away for 2 decades. Lily had been my childhood friend, my confidant. We had explored the woods behind our houses, daring each other to venture deeper into the shadows, giggling as we discovered hidden treasures within the underbrush. But those days were long gone. She had died in a tragic accident, leaving me with a void that had never truly healed. As I stared at the rain-smeared window, my phone buzzed on the table. I picked it up, my heart skipping a beat as I saw the sender's name. Lily. Impossible. My fingers trembled as I swiped the screen to read the message. Remember when we used to stay up all night, sharing our secrets and dreams? Meet me at our spot tonight. There's something I need to show you. A chill ran down my spine. How was this possible? My eyes darted around the room, as if expecting to see Lily's ghostly figure materialize from the shadows. The message was clearly meant for me, yet I knew that Lily was gone, buried beneath the weight of time and loss. But the pull of nostalgia was strong. Despite my better judgment, I found myself rising from the chair, slipping on my coat and grabbing an umbrella. I was compelled to go to our spot, that hidden clearing deep within the woods, where we had sworn our everlasting friendship. The rain intensified as I ventured into the forest, the trees whispering secrets to each other in the wind. My footsteps squelched in the mud as I followed the trail I had known so well as a child. Anxiety gnawed at my insides, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. That familiar sensation of Lily and I daring each other to explore. But now, the game was different. Sinister. Finally, I reached the clearing. The rain ceased momentarily, as if nature itself was holding its breath. In the center of the clearing stood a single, flickering lantern. Its feeble light cast eerie shadows that danced among the trees. "Hello?" I called out, my voice quivering. A voice, Lily's voice, seemed to echo on the wind, whispering my name. I spun around, my heart racing, but there was no one there. Just the trees, the lantern, and an overwhelming sense of dread. As I took a cautious step forward, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Lily. "You came. I knew you would. Follow the lantern, just like old times." Trepidation battled with curiosity within me. I knew I should turn back, that this was absurd and impossible, but against my better judgment, I found myself drawn to the lantern, its feeble light leading the way deeper into the woods, where the shadows grew thicker and the secrets darker. And with each step, the past and the present seemed to blur, and the line between the living and the dead began to fade. The woods seemed to close in around me, as if they were alive, watching my every move. The lantern's glow cast eerie, elongated shadows on the gnarled tree trunks, and my heart pounded with a mix of anticipation and fear. With each step, the whispers in the wind grew louder, forming words that echoed inside my mind. I followed the lantern's beckoning light through the twisted labyrinth of trees, feeling as though I had entered a world untouched by time. The air grew colder, and an unnatural stillness settled over the forest, broken only by the haunting symphony of rustling leaves and distant cries of creatures I couldn't identify. My phone buzzed again, causing me to jump. Another message from Lily. "Do you remember the promises we made? The ones that bound us together, even in death?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry as dust. Memories flooded back. The secret pact we had made, promising that no matter what happened, we would always be there for each other. But those were just childish fantasies, weren't they? Now, they seemed to take on a sinister weight, as if they were a contract signed in blood. The lantern led me deeper into the woods, and soon I stumbled upon an old, weathered tree stump. It was the same stump where we used to share our stories, our dreams, and the whispered fears of youth. The rain had soaked the wood, making it glisten in the lantern light. And then, from the shadows beyond the stump, a figure emerged. My breath caught in my throat as I saw her. Lily. She looked just as I remembered her from our childhood days, her eyes reflecting the lantern's glow, her smile both warm and haunting. "Lily?" I whispered, my voice shaking. She didn't reply, but simply beckoned me to come closer. The sense of unease intensified, and I found myself taking hesitant steps towards her. As I drew near, her form seemed to waver, as if struggling to maintain its solidity. "Remember the pact," she said, her voice a ghostly whisper. "Remember what we promised." "What's happening?" I asked, my voice quivering. "Follow me," she replied, turning and disappearing into the trees. I hesitated for a moment, torn between the urge to run and the pull of the past, but in the end, my curiosity won out, and I followed Lily deeper into the woods, where the shadows grew thicker and the world around me seemed to warp and twist. The rain had begun to fall again, and each droplet felt like a cold finger tracing a path down my spine. With each step, I felt as if I was stepping further away from reality and deeper into a nightmare. And yet, an undeniable connection to Lily, to our shared memories, compelled me to keep moving forward, despite the dread that coiled in the pit of my stomach. As I walked, I could have sworn I heard faint laughter in the distance, the same laughter that had once filled these woods with joy. But now, it was laced with a chilling undercurrent that sent shivers down my spine. The world around me had become a twisted, distorted version of the one I knew, and I had no choice but to follow Lily's ephemeral figure into the heart of darkness. The forest grew denser and more surreal as I ventured deeper, each step an act of defiance against the rising panic within me. The rain had transformed the ground into a treacherous sludge, and the trees seemed to writhe with a life of their own, their twisted branches reaching out like skeletal hands. Lily's form flickered ahead of me, a phantom guiding me further into the heart of this unsettling dreamscape. Her voice echoed in the wind, her words half memories and half prophecies. We promised to always be there for each other, no matter what, she murmured, the promise carrying an air of inevitability. At times, I would catch glimpses of her face, illuminated by flashes of lightning. Her eyes held a mixture of sadness and longing that chilled me to the bone. "It's so lonely here," she whispered, and I could almost feel her isolation seeping into my own soul. The path ahead seemed to lead nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. The boundaries between past and present, reality and illusion, had blurred beyond recognition. I struggled to keep track of time, my heart racing with a mixture of terror and a strange kind of determination. Another message from Lily appeared on my phone, breaking the silence like a crack of thunder. "Do you still remember the laughter? The joy? I've been waiting for you to remember." I felt a rush of confusion and anger. How could she expect me to remember the good times when I was surrounded by the suffocating darkness of this nightmare? But beneath those feelings, a part of me desperately clung to the memories of our friendship, hoping they would guide me out of this twisted labyrinth. The forest began to thin out, and I stumbled into a clearing that seemed both familiar and distorted. It was as if reality itself had fractured, leaving behind a shattered reflection of the past. In the center of the clearing stood a gnarled tree, its branches twisted into an uncanny semblance of human forms. And there, beneath the tree, was Lily. Her face was cast in shadow, her form a haunting silhouette against the unnatural backdrop. She extended a hand toward me, her voice barely a whisper. "It's time to remember, to make our pact whole again." I hesitated, my mind a maelstrom of fear and uncertainty, but the pull of our shared history, the memories of laughter and companionship, was undeniable. With a deep breath, I stepped forward and placed my hand in hers. The moment our hands touched, a surge of energy coursed through me, and the world around us seemed to shatter. Reality twisted and contorted, and I felt as though I were being pulled through a vortex of memories, snippets of our shared moments, both joyous and painful, flashing before my eyes in a dizzying whirl. And then, as suddenly as it began, the chaos subsided. The forest clearing was gone, replaced by a void of darkness. Lily's form stood before me, more solid and real than ever, yet still otherworldly. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice carrying an air of sadness and release. "You've brought me closer to you, closer than I ever thought possible." I tried to speak, to ask her what was happening, but my voice caught in my throat. As the darkness swallowed us, I had the unsettling sensation that our fates were now inextricably intertwined, and that the true nature of our pact was something far more chilling than I could ever have imagined. The darkness enveloped me like a suffocating shroud, and I felt as though I were adrift in a void of nothingness. Panic gripped my chest, my heart pounding with a primal fear I had never known. Lily's presence was still with me, her form a faint silhouette in the shadows. "We were bound together by more than memories," her voice echoed, as if from all directions at once. "Our pact was sealed in the heart of this forest, in the realm between life and death." I struggled to comprehend her words. The realization hit me like a cold wave. Our childhood promises, our secret pact, they were more than just childish whims. They had bound us to this place, to each other, in a way that transcended the boundaries of life and death. "I've been waiting for you, for someone to remember and fulfill our pact," Lily continued, "to ensure that I'm never truly alone in this eternal darkness." The weight of her words settled on my shoulders like a burden too heavy to bear. I felt a mixture of pity and terror for Lily, trapped in a realm between worlds, yearning for connection. But that connection came at a cost that I was only beginning to understand. "You've given me the gift of your memories, your presence," Lily said, her voice taking on a haunting tone. "And in return, I will ensure that you are never alone, that we are always together." Fear constricted my chest as the implication of her words became clear. The realization dawned on me. She wanted to bind me to this place, to this in-between realm, just as she was bound. A wave of anger surged within me, mingling with the fear. This wasn't what I had signed up for. This wasn't the reunion I had hoped for. "No," I managed to croak out, my voice shaking but determined. "I won't let you trap me here." Lily's form wavered, her features shifting between sadness and frustration. "But you promised," she whispered, her voice pleading. I took a step back, my heart pounding with a newfound strength. I promised a lot of things as a child, but that doesn't mean I'm bound by them now. I won't sacrifice my life, my future, for this twisted version of our friendship. The darkness around me seemed to ripple with Lily's emotions, her sadness, her anger, her longing, but the determination within me burned brighter. I had to break free from this nightmarish cycle. With a surge of willpower, I turned away from Lily's spectral form and began to walk, the darkness resisting my every step. Her voice grew more desperate, more pleading, as she tried to hold me back, to make me stay, but I refused to look back. I pushed through the resistance, my heart pounding with a mixture of terror and resolve. As I walked, the darkness began to recede, and a faint light began to pierce through the void. And then, with a sudden burst of intensity, I broke through. The world around me shifted, the forest clearing reappearing before my eyes. The rain had stopped, and the trees stood tall and familiar, their branches swaying in a gentle breeze. I was back in the real world, away from the nightmarish realm that had threatened to consume me. I took a shaky breath, my heart still racing, the memories of that surreal journey etched into my mind like scars. As I stood there, surrounded by the woods that held both fond memories and haunting nightmares, I knew that I had faced something beyond comprehension. Lily's spirit had sought solace, companionship, and I had managed to break free from her grasp, from the chilling pact that bound us together. But I couldn't shake the feeling that, even though I'd escaped this darkness, a lingering connection remained. A connection that would forever remind me of the thin line between the living and the dead, and the terrifying power of childhood promises that refused to be forgotten.